Welcome to our workshop for critical thinking skills. My name is Catherine Ely, and you can call me Kate.
And I'm Emily Reese, and you can call me Emily.
This evening we're going to talk about critical thinking skills. First we're going to do a self-discovery exploration of our own critical thinking skills. And then the second part of our workshop is going to give us an opportunity to follow a step-by-step process when you're going to pull onto your critical thinking skills when you examine both media clips, which is a situation where you're hearing someone present an opinion or an argument or a position.
Right.
And the second part is?
Second part is going to be a written word or article and we'll be using the Socratic method during that time.
Right. So first we have we have a little thing.
Self-assessment.
Yeah, this is a self-assessment that we want you to take a look at. If you read the characteristics and you believe you have that characteristic, then mark yes.
We encourage you to genuinely examine what, because everyone would like to think that they have all of these great qualities, but we want to make sure that you're looking at certain things that you might struggle with more so than others.
Right.
So if it's kind of in question, then put a no so that we can talk about what your possible strengths need, or where you need to have strengths. So we're going to give you, let us know when you're done. It shouldn't take more than a minute or two.
Yeah, if you could look up and give us a thumbs up, that would be a good indicator for us. It's a unanimous. Are you finished, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, great. We got all the thumbs up. Okay, great.
So we're going to just review a couple of these, just picking out some of these items that that you have chosen on your sheet here. And when I bring up a couple of these points, I'd like you to find what on this sheet my statement might be referring to. So I'll give you an example. So critical thinkers gather evidence appropriate to evaluating potential. So what's something on here that has to do with evidence appropriate to evaluating potential? If you're, which one? Yes, sir.
I respect evidence and reasoning.
Correct. So do you, as a critical thinker, develop a workable approach to gathering evidence? Those are things you need to think about yourself. Do you identify reliable sources of evidence? Can you look at something or hear something and know that it's reliable or not? Is it something you should think about those things? You distinguish relevant from irrelevant information. When you're listening to things, you need to be able to do that. So if you put yes or no regarding I respect evidence and reasoning, then these are some of the things that you need to think about.
Also, another feature is you can recognize similarities and differences among potential answers. In that you've examined the information, you're coming up with conclusions or answers. Critical thinkers explore implications and the possible consequences of potential answers. You're able to say, what if, and then take it all the way to the other side of perhaps a decision. Critical thinking is used in your decision-making process. And if critically thinking, you get to the other side and can say, what would be the consequences of this decision? What would be the consequences or implication if I should decide to do this? Critical thinkers can distinguish among fact, opinion, inference, interpretation, and judgment. And think about when you're listening to someone speak, or when you're looking at, for instance, our articles, can you distinguish a statement? When you hear the statement or you read the statement, you think, that sounds like an opinion, okay? Or read or you hear someone say something, which we'll see in our clips, and you'll be able to distinguish, that sounds like it might be reliable information.
So one of the things that makes a great critical thinker is someone who has objectivity. So I'm going to read this, and I want you to pick out a couple of things that might be on this list that refer to objectivity that you've just done a self-evaluation on, okay? Great critical thinkers have the ability to remain objective. They understand the goal, stay focused, and don't let their emotions or others cloud their judgment. What are a few of the things on your self-evaluation that might have to do with that? I can reread it. Great critical thinkers have the ability to remain objective. They understand the goal, stay focused, and don't let their emotions or others cloud their judgment. What is on this list that would be something that would refer to what I just talked about?
I
Go
will
ahead.
seek and compare perspectives.
I will see, yes, absolutely. That is objectivity. There's another one on it too.
Open-minded?
Open-minded, absolutely.
Think of a personal experience too, where you've been involved in, this goes back to our study on interpersonal relationships and communications, being objective in a conversation or dialogue that you may be having with your significant other, a spouse, or children. Do you remain objective about the issue being discussed? You don't bring into any emotions. I know as a parent, we have a lot of issues that we deal with. For example, curfew was the big issue for us. Why do I have to be in before midnight? Because the chances of me getting pregnant or doing drugs or is just as likely if I come home after 12 o'clock. That was a huge issue in our house. So remaining objective, not letting the emotions flood you, as in a situation that I did was, I'm your mother, I know better than you will be home by 12. I wasn't being very objective. Not pulling up evidence that says, look, these are the chances of being in a car accident after midnight because people have been drinking during the happy hour. So that's an example.
And I have a question. What are some of the things that can cloud your judgment when you are listening to something on the TV and you agree or disagree with them? What are some of those things that might make your emotions come up and cause you to maybe not listen to that person and try to pick out critically what they're thinking? Can anyone give us some examples from their own lives of things that might cloud your judgment?
Well, if it goes against your moral code,
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
and I think that can raise a lot of
Right.
intense feelings.
Right.
Well, I noticed like a lot of luxury items that I can't afford, and they seem very enticing to me to want to buy them. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I can't afford that.
Right.
Why do I think I can? Like, why?
Right. Anyone else have anything that can cloud their judgment, that when they are trying to think through something critically, what is something that might get your goat, I guess?
Maybe your relationship with one of the things, like say there are two people that are debating and you are best friends with one.
Right.
You're
Yes,
obviously-
definitely.
you're- yeah.
Personal
Mhm.
connections with that
Yeah.
particular person. Right, absolutely.
Okay, and I'm going to
Go
go
ahead.
to the
Yeah,
next feature
absolutely.
is creativity. Allow yourself to be creative. Brainstorming without judgment can spark amazing ideas. Thinking outside the box may create a solution. Sometimes denying ourselves this freedom holds us back more than we'd like to think. Has anyone ever participated in a brainstorming session? Sure. So we get around a table and you just start throwing everything out there. Just, you don't even think about if it relates, you're just throwing stuff out there. That's being creative. And then you start to narrow it down and start making it a little more solidified. One thing that we want to add is you don't have to possess all of these personality traits or dispositions to be a critical thinker. You can have some of them and be a really good critical thinker. And I'm a perfect example. I consider myself to be a critical thinker, but I'm not creative. I know that about myself. Do you have any features that you think you do have or you don't have?
Sometimes I think that I would like to think I'm humble, but I'm not when I am trying to go about getting my point across. You know, you get proud. It's easy to get proud, And it is a really good critical thinker that can, you might be proud, but to squash that to a point where you're making sure that you're not clouding your judgment and not hearing them. So I think that I have a hard time with that sometimes.
Being humility, or being humble too, is being willing to throw something out there, for example, in a brainstorm, and not be afraid to fail.
Right.
You know, or think someone's gonna think it's stupid, it's just go after it. And, you know, then if you find out that maybe that was a little off the cliff, then you say, okay, it was a little off the cliff, so.
Right.
Okay, on the back of your worksheet there, we're gonna outline some questions to ask yourself.
I can actually, if you want me to write or you
Yeah.
talk, that would
Okay.
maybe
Okay.
be a good way for
You wanna
us
write these down because you wanna, this is actually a process
we're
that
gonna
you can use when you're listening to someone or when you're reading someone. Ask for evidence.
Go ahead.
Get in the habit of asking for evidence when someone makes a claim. This can be as simple as, where did you read that? Or, was that speculation, or was there a test done, or you have some research that you can rely on? If you present something, you want to also be prepared to provide evidence for your own claims. Okay?
Go ahead. You can do the next one.
Next one is consider the source. And I think she and I are.
I have to tell you this, but when we started this school year, the president, is no longer the president. We have a new one. This is confidential. At the first meeting, this man, who has a BA in accounting, who's been our president, who was here as a fundraiser, whatever. But he gets up and makes this announcement that class sizes of 60 are really more productive. And he's saying all of these things about large class sizes, and this is a way we're going to go in the future. And I'm thinking to myself, you can't ask the man, remember I need health insurance for everybody. You can't ask the man, where is your evidence for that? And then you come up with consider the source, and I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but oh my goodness.
And for those of us that are a little bit older, I remember in the 60s, someone would say something and you were in this circle of gossip. They say, well, Kate did, well, consider the source. Who
The
said
other
it?
thing is there are classes of 45 down in Las Vegas now. 45. 45. It's crazy. So,
Yeah, and it takes a lot, doesn't it, when you hear this source spewing something, that's when you have to be quiet or try and maintain objectivity. Since people don't carry evidence around with them, we accept many things said at least for the sake of argument. But we can't consider the sources of information. Does this person usually remember the facts correctly? Is the source that they're referring to reliable? Or, in Dixie's situation, she's looking on the source. This guy has an accounting degree and is talking about class size. Okay? Next, consider your motivations. Determine what we believe and what others believe, and what evidence is considered by all of us. Doesn't the media tap in on this? And politicians? Yes. Yes. Okay, next one. Challenge premises. Habitually reflect on the premises of a claim or an argument, whether another's or your own. Okay? Actively try to spot weaknesses in them. Remember that one bad premise contains all that comes from it. Okay? Be open to changing your mind. This goes to our seek and compare everyone's perspective for their point of view. Always be ready and willing to change your mind based on new evidence. In the sciences, critical thinking is crucial, and a good scientist is ready and willing to drop the beliefs of a lifetime if better ones present themselves. Make it a point to ask yourself what evidence would change your mind. This prepares you for that possibility. And consider your own experience. And you'll see, I think some of us will be able to identify with this particular step when we
Yeah,
see
we
our
already
first.
somewhat discussed that
We
earlier.
have, yes,
Right.
we did, we
Right.
did.
Right.
I heard someone make a claim that is politically correct the other day. As is common with such claims, it is assumed that everyone agrees. But just a moment's reflection made me realize that my own experience refuted the claim. Okay, look for common logical fallacies. Anyone take logic? Did you take logic in your undergrad work?
I did, but it was about 20 years ago.
Habitually identify common logical fallacies. Who can remember one of the fallacies, the logical fallacies?
Loaded question.
Yeah, that's one of them. What's another one? This is always my favorite.
Generalization.
I love that you remember these.
Well, that is a while
The
back.
cause
I
does
like
not
fallacies.
equal the effect.
Yes,
Or whatever.
yes. What about the appeal to authority?
Oh, yeah.
That was always my favorite one. You know, just because you're the president of the United States doesn't mean it's right or it's true, okay?
Exactly.
Well,
An appeal to an authority is a logical fallacy based on the hidden assumption that if they said it, it must be true, okay? I used that a lot when I was really heavy into my parenting. Mom said it, it's true, okay? It must be true. Okay, admit ignorance. You know, this goes back to the being humble. You know, if you hear something, it's okay to say, oh, gosh, I don't have enough information on that. I need to go find some more information on that.
Right.
That was really hard for me, too. Hey, Kate, do you think that da-da-da-da-da? And then I was just, wait a minute. It took me a long time to get to the skill of, I don't know enough about that, but I will find out more information and get back to you.
It's always better to do that than to.
To spew something that's
Spew
really
something.
wrong, and then you've tainted your credibility.
Right.
And then last, look for alternative explanations. I can see that this explanation makes sense, but what other explanations are possible? You ever heard something that really did make sense? You know, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I really think that makes good sound sense to me. And then you ask yourself, are there any other explanations for that? So we're going to practice these steps. We're going to look at our clips.
Now, I did look at the time, and I think we only have time for one clip because we're getting close to the end of.
well, we can do one clip
Class.
this week and you can lead us in one next week.
Okay, that, and then we can keep the.
We'll do Bachman now, because
Okay.
that's a short one, and then
Right.
we can do the, you can do the money.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
'Cause you know where
yeah.
we're going.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Good.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this around. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger.
Can you see Alyssa?
And I'll turn it around. Really, more than anything, it's what she says.
Sit on the table,
Okay,
Jessica.
I'm going to turn it around.
This was recent. This was after one of the political debates. It's Michelle Bachman.
Now, you know, we're not, honestly, what I want to do here, though, is say that we're not saying Republican versus Democrat at this point.
Right,
It's
that's-
literally, we're just looking at what she says, because Democrats alike can say things just like what she can say right here, okay? So this is actually regarding a vaccine that's available for HPV for young girls.
Right. And what
Okay.
spawned the issue is when Rick Perry entered the race, he was the one, I don't know if you're following these at all, but he was the one that everybody went after. The new candidate always gets to be the target. They jump after him. The issue was the Gardasil immunization, and he made it a required immunization in the state of Texas. And then the debate continued on from there.
Okay.
Then she makes this statement after the debate.
It should go. I click the wrong side.
Again, that every girl would have to have this particular drug, and the problem is, it comes with some very significant consequences. There's a woman who came up crying to me tonight after the debate. She said her daughter was given that vaccine. She told me her daughter suffered mental retardation as a result of that vaccine. There are very dangerous consequences. It's not good enough to take, quote, a mulligan, or you want a do-over, not when you have little children's lives at risk.
Okay, that's it. So,
Quickly,
go
make
ahead.
some notes on the back there, following your, ask for evidence, consider the source,
I don't know what a mulligan is.
her
That's okay.
motivations.
That's okay.
Something to do with
Think
golf.
about the statement that she made. She made a very general statement based on something. So let's talk about some of the steps that we talked about here in reviewing when we are watching a clip. What are some of the things that might come to your mind? Where is she getting this information? I'm just going to let you guys, actually, excuse me, I'm just going to let
The learners.
you learners,
The
you thinkers, you critical thinkers, think of a few reasons why this statement that she made regarding Gardasil might have been not such a wise
Also,
statement.
Yeah, and think about your first reaction when you heard this, and this was the discussion that she and I had when we talked about this clip. What was your first reaction when you heard what she said? Okay?
Is
And
everyone-
asking yourself these questions. Okay, was there evidence in that statement?
0.
Right.
Do you think she was tapping in on a logical fallacy?
Oh, yeah, generalization, for sure.
Right, definitely.
What about her motivation?
Yeah, I think you have to consider her motivation because obviously she wants to negate his comments basically, and her motivation, she's bringing in small children, so it's like pulling on the heartstrings.
Right.
Yes.
Consider the source. It's not so much Michelle Bachman we're talking about, it's where she's getting her information. Consider the source. It's a crying mom. Now, there's information we could go ahead and find out about immunizations and what are out there. Go ahead, were you going to say something?
Well, it's just considering my own experience, I've got the Gardasil
Right.
immunization and I had no problems.
Right, right. Now, there are some things that are going on out there that the Gardasil, like if you were wanting to research the actual immunization, then, you know, there are some potential issues because it's a brand new immunization, yes.
Well, there's just a whole bunch of history behind that whole thing. I mean,
Right.
HPV is originally a sexually transmitted disease,
Right.
and they're giving it to younger girls at this point, which is assuming, sexual activity, depending on your, where you are in terms of your morals. Like, you don't want to. Some people might not want to accept the fact that this person's going to
Right.
have, potentially sexual intercourse at some point.
Well, there's even more to it. If you were to research, actually, a lot of people carry HPV
Right.
and don't even know it. And whether it was actually sexually, it might not have been something that we received sexually. So there's actually there's more information that's available out there than what Michelle Bachman talked about.
They've also determined that cervical cancer is another reason that they're asking, because cervical cancer, this could prove to be, and I don't think there's enough evidence, I don't know that, but their belief is that it prevents cervical cancer.
HPV can cause
From
cervical
what I know,
cancer.
there's about 12 to 13 types of HPV.
There's actually
Two
118
types. Oh,
different
what?
kinds.
Like only a couple of them
Are covered by that shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you just not swap some statistics?
Yes, we did.
That's evidence, isn't it?
Right.
That's good evidence. Did you say 12 to 18?
No, she
I
said
said I was
actually
off.
Yeah,
118.
see, you're tapping in on some good evidence
Right.
that says, wait a minute.
Right.
So,
So when we're looking at clips that people say, we need to be critical thinkers. And we need to be careful ourselves that we don't spout off something just because some emotional mom came up to us and said this is how it's going to be. We need to be able to critically think. Go ahead.
But playing devil's advocate,
Sure.
and you have number 5, be open to changing your mind.
Sure.
And I think this could be really hard if you're like hardcore anti-Republican or hardcore, whatever you are. Let's say that it's true, okay?
All right.
Just playing devil's advocate. You would have to be willing to critically think, okay, wait, what is her stance like? What does she have to that? Is there any truth to that, I guess?
Right, and there is actually
Instead of-
medical evidence out there that is anecdotal, and there aren't a lot of doctors that would necessarily agree with it, but there is evidence potentially that certain types of immunizations have caused things like autism.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are things out there that you have to be able to be willing to look at. I'm not saying that I agree one way
Yeah,
or the
me
other.
either. I'm just saying.
Right, you have to be willing to look at it. Go ahead.
Well, and also using that kind of, another generalization like mental retardation. I mean, in California, if someone has, 7 concussions, they fall into that category.
Mm.
This person has concussions, It's not like they're walking around with a mental disability, but they have that statistic behind them,
Right.
and they're considered mentally retarded, you know? So how does that play into it? You know, are we actually talking about a person that has severe mental conditions after the, you know, after the Gardasil, or are we talking about, you know, something that is deviated from that definition of mental retardation?
What were you gonna say?
Well, I think the key that makes this a not a logical or, not a logical argument is that the mother, it's one mother, it says, my child got this and then suffered mental retardation. It's pretty unusual if you don't have a head injury to all of a sudden you suffer mental retardation. And that's just a logical, physical fact. So the story doesn't really add up
Right.
Yeah,
right away. It just doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And that's a silly thing to repeat.
From her standpoint, she
Right.
needs to be careful.
So
yeah,
mental
she wasn't
retard-
using her critical thinking skills.
and how would,
Counting.
how would you be
Right.
able to, okay, you're saying that you can, a side effect can be mental retardation. You don't suddenly become mentally retarded, right?
Not
So
usually
what
unless
piece of
you
evidence,
have an injury.
well, what piece of evidence would you go look for? An example in your research would be, and I don't think there's anything out there, I don't know, a longitudinal study where they track these. Longitudinal studies are those studies where they take a great bunch of kids, for example, and they follow them over a period of time. It can be 5, 10 years. And then they make a determination. Did the Gardasil immunization cause mental retardation? Okay.
Well, and what we all have done here already is we've been critically thinking
Right.
about what she said, about where we need to be as critical thinkers, about how Michelle Bachman could improve. So we're using what we've been talking about, these things up here, and looking at yourself and how you critically think. So, but what we need to do is we need to move on, unfortunately,
Okay.
because we're running
So
a
we're
little
not
bit
gonna talk
long.
about weapons of mass destruction?
No. Is that okay with you for tonight? We can move on to that next week, Dixie, if you'd like.
She's going to do the presentation. Because we have another clip.
Okay, so, and actually what I'd like to know is how much time we technically do have, because the next activity takes about 10 minutes, and
Okay, why don't
so,
we tie this part together,
okay.
and then we'll do the rest next time. Does everybody understand?
She's gonna
What
do
I
the
think I
by
might-
herself.
Right.
It's okay.
Is
What
that
I think
okay?
I might do actually is hand out the article that we were going to discuss, which will save some time for next week because we do have a lot of people that need to teach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys each 2 things. One is a background on tenure, teacher tenure. We're going to have a Socratic discussion about it. And then the next article is actually just an article that we're going to pick apart. So I'm going to have you guys read those before class next week so that we can get going on it and save on some time, okay?
Okay, so
All right.
bring your preparation, keep your feedback notes for next week.
Right.
We'll finish that up.
Then, how much time do we have? Do we have like 6
Yeah, why don't you
minutes?
go ahead?
About
We have
6
some time to
minutes?
do that, just to get that out and talk about it.
And let's do our caps, okay?
Okay.
1 minute.
Okay, that's good.
You're going to get these 2 articles. We want to critically think about what we're reading. This next activity, just a plain old piece of paper out of your notebook for 1 minute. I want you to write what you learned about critical thinking and what you learned about your own critical thinking skills. This is a reflective exercise. 1 minute. Go.
Thank you much.
And what I'm handing out is
So we're not handing out, so you don't talk.
16 Habits of Mind. And I didn't reference it, but there's a habitsofmind.org